what I've been asked to do is just open the conversation and talk a little bit about the pace of fashion. I think we all know, working in this business every day, that things have been going faster and faster and faster. Because basically what I think has happened, if I was to summarize it, is that the communication cycle of fashion sped up really, really quickly. But for some reason, we've become stuck in the operation cycle. So, consumers are hearing about products instantly as they hit the runway. And before, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, before the dawn of style.com, maybe there'd be 1 or 2 reviews in the newspaper the next day and 1 image, and that was what people were able to take away from the collections. Obviously, all of that has now changed because everyone sees everything right away. So, Shala, one of the things that you and I were talking about earlier was, well, are people then, by the time they've seen those images over and over and over again, they don't get the clothes for 6 months?
Are they tired of
you expressed some frustration with that.
Well, I don't think I get tired of it. I think if a garment is interesting and if it's beautiful, then I look forward to getting it. What frustrates me as a consumer is going into the store in the summer and looking for something that's completely gone by then, and it's all winter clothing. So that's what really frustrates me.
So it's the fact that it's not ready when you need it to be. So it's like you want to buy close to the time of purchase. You don't want to plan your summer wardrobe in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's how a lot of people are.
Meaning, after the show, you're planning? I was talking with someone, and someone was telling me, it was an online store, it was telling me that really what's selling online are the things that are extremely visible, that are shot constantly. That's what's really selling online, or the very, very commercial pieces, but in between isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that people aren't really getting sick of it.
Well,
When I heard that, I was like, oh, okay. Well, then.
I think that was Tom Ford's comment. That was one of the reasons why he kept his show very private, because he thought that overexposure would kill the desire to have a garment.
Right,
by the time it got.
Thought.
What is your experience with it?
I agree with Tom Ford.
You do agree with him?
Yes.
But you're saying no.
No, I agree with him, but then I was just speaking with somebody who had just informed me of the opposite.
I think it depends on the customer.
Right.
I think there's a very sophisticated customer who would be turned off by seeing it on the red carpet. But then I think there is a huge number of people who are still very, very influenced by celebrities. I was talking to the PR from M&S today, different level, but she was saying that they've had a complete rush on wedges. They have sold out of wedges because Pippa Middleton and Kate Middleton photographed wedges. They're not even the same wedges, but
just the idea of it.
Wedges, white bikinis now. There's a total rush on white bikinis.
Back to this question around the pace of fashion, which is kind of the core topic of the discussion today. I wanted to talk about the role of magazines in this kind of new structure, and I wanted to kind of test an idea with you. I mean, I see magazines falling into 3 different groups now. There's the kind of biannual magazines that come out twice a year, really thick, beautiful, long photo shoots, the best photographers, the best models, beautiful content. And then there's weekly magazines like Grazia, but also, incidentally, Vanity Fair in Italy, Elle in France, which are incredibly powerful vehicles for selling products. And the supplements. And then we have the monthly magazines, which are kind of stuck in the middle, because for a long time they were focused on news and trends. But now, as we all know, news and trends are instantly available all the time on the internet, and it's. I wondered whether you had any thoughts of kind of where you see the world of print magazines going as the internet continues to gain steam and continues to become a dominant communication medium in this context of an increasing pace of fashion.
It's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people kind of look or have said to me, my God, your life must be a nightmare. That kind of weekly pace just must be a nightmare. And particularly colleagues on monthly magazines, and you can see the blood drains from their faces and say, how do you keep up? And I have said, and it is honestly true, it's a recurring nightmare of mine that I wake up in the middle of the night and constantly have to sweat and find myself in a monthly. Because the freedom that we have to actually get stuff out there, to kind of meet somebody in the street, spot something going on in a newspaper, turn on MTV, spot something, just, you know, gossip that starts in the office and just get it into the magazine, feels to me like the most incredible freedom. And I think that's what readers are responding to, because there is that sense of, on a monthly, that freshness isn't there anymore. And that 3-month lead time has got to be like a noose around their necks. And
I'm constantly struggling to
constantly
find ideas and to make them different from what everyone else is reading.
You know, we kind of
online every day.
Exactly, and also what we hear now is that monthlies are kind of fighting dirty, particularly the Americans, because they'll say, oh, well, you know, we want that sample for our cover, but we don't want anybody else to shoot it until the September issue, which is nuts, completely nuts. And that is very counter-consumer.
But also, it's a power struggle that the reader doesn't care about.
No, it doesn't care about.
The reader's not clocking that. I think, I agree with you about monthlies, and I grew up working on monthlies, but you know, the Galliano story was the case in point. It was just such a brilliant story. From to be on a newspaper, it was an amazing fashion story that took over the front pages. And then I thought, well, how would you do this on a monthly? Because however you do it, that story's going to be
stale,
and they can't take it on any further than we've taken it because of their lead times. And I think that is.
But they can't ignore it either.
They can't ignore it. Now, some have, some haven't. But it's that kind of story.
Not only that, but the royal wedding as well, and the excitement of that. We've kind of done
that's another problem because they don't always have the access.
We also got blown over by Bin Laden.
But then we had the joy of doing that as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the thing about being able to move fast, is that you can cover, that's, I think, the joy of the kind of the high lows.
But before we get to the placements, talk about our wonderful day. I mean, I sit there and sometimes thinking, oh my God, I can't get this until tomorrow. Oh, I'll tweet. So it's never fast enough.
Another thing that's happened is that the eye has gotten so used to the glossy image and everything well produced that there's been a study done, and people don't look anymore at a very perfect image. The eye will gravitate if there's like an online page and there's, I don't know, highly done Miu Miu ad. The eye will gravitate to this really like crude photograph. We want to see something else. We're too I guess we've gotten to that stage where the Japanese have gotten that we want to see something else, and I guess it's what tweeting does.
I think intimacy is a really key word here, because I think that's what people are looking for. And you said, you know, how do you actually relate, how does a customer relate to the brand? And to a certain extent, you know, billboard advertising, it's not intimate at all. And your relationship with Chanel, and then given to the customer different levels of intimacy. And a Facebook page, I mean, it may be 5 million, but it's very intimate because it came onto your computer screen,
right.
Tweeting it.
And you liked that brand or that person or whatever, and they showed up. I mean, I guess, and the follow-on of that kind of emotional reaction that people get is, now, before, what could you do if you saw something that inspired you? You fold over the magazine page, save it, and show it to your friend. Now I can instantly share that image or that experience or that article with, hundreds of people in my Facebook page or on my Twitter account, and these things go viral. So the things that are really inspirational, that and the Tom Ford video is one of those things. I think so many people wanted to be there, and he saved it for such a small group of people, and so much excitement had built around it that when finally it was opened up, there was that, you felt that intimacy the way they filmed that video. And so when you create that kind of, when brands can create that kind of content that inspires an emotional reaction, which then leads someone to want to share something, that's the new way of communication, as opposed to, big, huge billboards which kind of like interrupt you.
I think, sorry, as you were saying, in terms of Tom Ford, the mystery of it is kind of lost in fashion. I'm speaking from a different perspective from the film industry, but I think there's so much all the time. I'm being bombarded every day with so many messages, and it's like, which one do I take? Do I want this handbag? Do I want this one? Do I want to watch this film? Do I read this book? There's so much, and anyone can write a review. You know, there's been what's been published in the last year on the internet is more that's been published in the history of man. Right. I mean, it's just like, so what do what do you read, and who do you trust? And you know, for you, if you write with honesty, then fine. But you know, I don't really read much on the internet, and I don't really understand or have interest with Twitter or different things. And I'm more interested, what you're saying, the weight of the paper, the weight of the book. It's that whole thing with luxury brands. Is it quantity or is it quality? Like quality brands that created amazing leather goods, that's now completely uninterested. It's just a bag, you know, it's just the next big thing. It's like, which do you...
Well, and in a way, you don't really have to, you can have both, right? You can have that high-speed interaction, and I mean, I'm just kind of reflecting from my own life. I mean, I subscribe to Fantastic Man and Another, and you know, those biannual magazines are part of my, and I cherish those magazines. But then I also have like that high-speed, you know, information where if I leave my computer screen for, a day and my Twitter account is open, I'll come back and it'll literally say 14,000 new tweets. And I'm like, how can we possibly consume all this information? You just, whatever's you missed it. It's only what's going on now.
I think really the answer to the speed of fashion, which somehow when I was, asked to join in on all this, it seemed to be quite a negative title, as in how can we cope with the speed of fashion? I think the answer really is that there are different speeds that relate to different things. I mean, that's what I'm taking away from this evening, that, in a way, which I think is obvious, the beautiful images that have taken a great deal of work and have been long thought out in perhaps a biannual magazine are part of the mix. But as you've just said, you also want the very speedy things. I think now we're talking about having different layers and levels and different speeds, and I personally think that's rather good.
And I think that's a really good note probably to end on. Thank you, Suzy. And thanks to everyone for coming. Do you have anything else?